It's 12:47 a.m. The room is dark except for the phone in your hand. That soft blue glow that feels louder than it should. Your thumb hovers. There's an unread message you already saw an hour ago. You didn't answer. You tell yourself you will, just not yet. The house makes that almost sound. Pipes settling. A distant car. Your breath suddenly noticeable. You shift in bed. The sheets whisper. And for a second, it feels like the silence is leaning closer. You notice it then. At night, silence doesn't stay quiet. It presses. You don't think this during the day. During the day, silence is just space between noises. Harmless. Forgettable. But now it has weight. You can feel it in your chest, like the air got thicker after midnight. Like the room is listening back. And the weird thing is, you didn't invite any of this. You just turned off the light. There's a moment like this most nights. A small one. Easy to miss. When your phone goes face down. When the scrolling slows and you're not even reading anymore. When you realize you've been replaying the same 3 thoughts on a loop without noticing. You tell yourself you're tired. That's all. But the silence doesn't buy it. It's strange how quiet can feel crowded. How, when everything stops, things you didn't schedule suddenly show up. A sentence you wish you hadn't said, one you didn't say at all. That look someone gave you earlier, probably meaningless except it keeps knocking. You almost laugh at yourself. Almost. Then you stop. Because this isn't funny. Not exactly. It's familiar. You lie there, staring at nothing, and parts of you start speaking up. Not in full sentences. More like fragments. Half thoughts. Feelings without names. The kind you ignore all day by staying slightly busy. Slightly distracted, slightly fine. At night, there's no slightly. It reminds me of something we brushed against in that earlier video. The one about confidence quietly wearing down through tiny daily choices. Not the dramatic stuff. The small hesitations. The almosts. This feels like the same room, just later. Quieter. After the noise leaves and you're alone with what's left behind. The silence doesn't accuse you. That's the unsettling part. It just waits. You notice how your body reacts before your mind does. Your jaw tightens. Your shoulders inch upward, like you're bracing for a sound that never comes. You check the phone again, even though nothing changed. Still nothing. A short, sharp thought cuts through. What if this is it? Then it's gone. The night has a way of stretching questions without answering them. You think about reaching out to someone, but the idea feels heavy. Explaining would take energy. And besides, you don't even know what you'd say. Hey, I'm fine, I just didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. Feels like too much and not enough at the same time. So you stay quiet, and the quiet stays back. The hours after midnight feel thinner, like the world is temporarily less solid. Mirrors seem more honest. Screens feel more personal. Even memories change texture. Things you were sure about at noon now feel unfinished. Open-ended. You replay moments not because you want to, but because they're suddenly louder than everything else. That conversation where you nodded instead of speaking. The way you avoided eye contact in the hallway. How easy it was to scroll past something important and tell yourself you'd come back later. Later is a soft lie at night. There's a kind of recognition that settles in around this time. Not a realization. Not yet. More like a quiet acknowledgement that the silence isn't empty. It's full of all the things you postponed feeling. And now, with nothing competing for attention, they line up. Patient. Polite. Inignorable. You might notice how your thoughts circle instead of moving forward. They don't go anywhere new. They just orbit. The same concerns. The same doubts, lightly reshuffled. Like a deck of cards you've already memorized. And somewhere in that loop, there's discomfort. Not sharp. Not overwhelming. Just enough to make you shift positions again. Just enough to keep sleep at arm's length. You wonder, without fully asking, why it only feels this intense at night. Why the same thoughts that shrink in daylight suddenly expand in the dark? Why silence, of all things, feels like it's doing the talking? Another small interruption. You swallow. The room doesn't change. Maybe that's the point. Maybe silence feels louder because there's no place to hide inside it. During the day, you can scatter yourself across tasks and conversations and noise. At night, everything gathers back into one place. Into you. The confidence erosion we talked about before. It doesn't scream when it happens. It whispers. It blends in. And at night, when the world stops adding new sounds, those whispers finally echo. You're not breaking. You're noticing. That thought almost comforts you. Almost. but it also opens something you weren't ready to name. A quiet realization forming at the edge of awareness. That the silence isn't creating these feelings. It's revealing them. And revelation is gentle, but it's not neutral. The phone dims in your hand. The screen goes darker. Your reflection stares back faintly, layered over whatever app you left open. You look tired there, more honest, less defended. You think about tomorrow morning, about how this version of you will fade as daylight fills the room again, how you'll move, talk, respond, like always, how this moment will shrink into something you can't quite explain if you tried. But right now, it's still here. The silence hasn't said its last word. It doesn't need to. Eventually, you'll put the phone down, or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll just let the screen go black on its own. And the room will stay exactly as it is, quiet, watching, waiting for you to notice what you've already been hearing. And when the video ends and the sound cuts out, there will be a brief pause. Just a breath. Just you. Silence doesn't arrive at night the way people imagine it does. It doesn't drop suddenly, clean and empty. It seeps in, slowly, almost politely, like it's checking whether you're ready before it fully settles. By the time you notice it, it's already everywhere. The lights are off, but your eyes are still open. Not wide, just open enough. The room feels familiar, but slightly altered, like furniture moved an inch while you weren't looking. The air sounds different. Even your breathing feels like it belongs to the room now, not just to you. During the day, mirrors are functional. You pass them without stopping. You catch fragments. Your face in an elevator reflection, your outline in a dark window, your eyes in a bathroom mirror while washing your hands. It's quick, efficient. You see enough to move on. At night, silence becomes a different kind of mirror. It doesn't show your face. It shows your timing. What you delayed. What you avoided. What you told yourself didn't matter because you didn't have time to deal with it right then. Silence doesn't rush. It just reflects. You think about the day, but not in order, not logically. Moments float up without warning. A tone you used. A pause that lasted a second too long. The way you almost said something and didn't. These aren't the dramatic highlights people talk about. They're smaller, softer, that's why they last. Silence doesn't exaggerate, it clarifies. There's something unsettling about how accurate it feels. Like it's not inventing anything, just removing the filters. During the day, noise edits your inner world. Conversations interrupt thoughts before they finish. Notifications pull you away mid-feeling. Tasks give you excuses to stop noticing yourself. At night, the editing stops. You lie there and realize how much effort goes into staying slightly distracted. Not enough to be lost, just enough to be untouched. Silence strips that away. And suddenly your attention has nowhere else to land. It lands on you. That's when the mirror effect kicks in. You see patterns, not events. You notice how often you choose the safer response. How often you shrink a reaction so it fits the room. How often you tell yourself you'll deal with something later, knowing later rarely comes with better timing. Silence doesn't judge this. It doesn't need to. It just shows it back to you exactly as it is. There's a subtle discomfort in realizing that the quiet isn't empty. It's precise. Like it's been keeping notes all day, and now it's time to review them. Not aggressively, just honestly. You feel seen in a way that's hard to explain, because no one is actually watching. Except you. This is why silence feels louder. Not because it adds anything, but because it removes the distance between you and your own reactions. You can't skim yourself. You can't scroll past the feeling. You have to sit with it long enough to recognize its shape. Sometimes that recognition comes as a physical sensation before a thought. A tightness in the chest. A subtle clench in the jaw. A restlessness that has no clear direction. Your body understands before your mind wants to admit anything. You shift positions. You check the time. You consider reaching for your phone, then hesitate. Silence waits through all of it. What it reflects isn't always negative. Sometimes it's longing. Sometimes it's pride you didn't pause to feel earlier. Sometimes it's a quiet disappointment you brushed off because it didn't seem important enough to acknowledge in the moment. Silence treats all of it the same. It's strange how honest you become when there's no audience. No feedback loop, no reaction to manage. The mirror doesn't respond, it just holds the image steady. And the longer you look, the more detail appears. You start to notice how much of your day is spent managing impressions, adjusting tone, smoothing edges, choosing words carefully. Silence shows you the version of yourself that doesn't need to be adjusted, because there's no one to receive it. That can feel relieving for a moment, then uncomfortable, then strangely grounding. There's a recognition that creeps in here, quiet but persistent, that the silence isn't doing anything new. It's just revealing what's been quietly accumulating. Small choices layered on top of each other, small hesitations stacking up, small truths left unspoken, not because they were unimportant, but because they didn't seem urgent. Urgency fades at night. What's left is relevance. You realize that the mirror silence holds isn't about who you are in your best moments or your worst ones. It reflects who you are when no performance is required, when there's nothing to gain or lose by noticing the truth of a feeling. That's why it can feel heavy. Not crushing, just undeniable. The longer the night stretches, the clearer the reflection becomes. Not sharper, just steadier. You stop trying to interpret it. You stop looking for answers. You simply notice the way a thought rises and falls. The way a feeling softens when it's finally acknowledged, even without resolution. Silence doesn't demand action. It doesn't push you toward change. It only asks that you see what's already there, without rushing past it, without reframing it into something more comfortable. And as you lie there, surrounded by that quiet accuracy, you sense that this mirror will disappear again in the morning. That daylight will blur the reflection. Avoidance usually doesn't feel dramatic. It feels practical, reasonable, like choosing not to step into traffic when you don't need to. During the day, it wears the mask of efficiency. You skip a thought because there's an email to answer. You postpone a feeling because you're already late. You tell yourself you'll circle back when things slow down, knowing full well that they rarely do. Noise makes this easy. Noise gives you somewhere to place your attention so you don't have to place it on yourself. Conversations overlap. Notifications vibrate. Screens refresh. Even your own inner commentary stays busy, narrating tasks, planning ahead, replaying only what's useful. Avoidance blends in so well here that it almost disappears. Then quiet shows up. Not suddenly. Not like a door slamming shut. More like a room emptying out one person at a time, until you look around and realize there's no one left to talk to except yourself. The hum fades. The background collapses. And what was avoidance 5 hours ago becomes presence without asking permission. Quiet doesn't chase you down. It removes your exits. You notice it first in the smallest ways. The urge to reach for your phone without knowing why. The instinct to put on a video you won't really watch. The need to fill space, any space, before something else fills it for you. These impulses aren't random. They're habits built around not staying too long with any one feeling. When quiet arrives, those habits surface clearly. Like footprints in wet sand, you become aware of how often you redirect yourself. How quickly you change lanes internally the moment something feels uncertain or emotionally unfinished. During the day, this feels like momentum. At night, in the quiet, it feels like a pattern. And patterns are harder to ignore. Presence doesn't announce itself with clarity. It arrives awkwardly. You sit with a thought longer than you intended to. A memory lingers past its usual fade-out point. A feeling you'd labeled as nothing starts to show texture, edges. Wait, you might tell yourself you're overthinking. That's usually the first defense. But the quiet doesn't argue. It doesn't correct you. It just stays, steady enough that your usual mental shortcuts don't work the way they normally do. Avoidance relies on movement. Presence happens when movement runs out. There's discomfort here, but it's not sharp. It's more like being seen by something that doesn't blink. You realize how much energy goes into not noticing certain things. How strategic your distractions are. How carefully timed your business can be. Quiet turns the spotlight on that effort. You begin to feel the difference between choosing rest and choosing escape. Between pausing and postponing. During the day, those distinctions blur. At night, they sharpen. You recognize the familiar places where your attention slips away the moment something asks for honesty. Not honesty out loud. Internal honesty, the kind no one else hears. Presence doesn't demand answers. That's what makes it unsettling. There's no immediate relief, no clear outcome, just the awareness itself. The realization that you've been steering around certain inner intersections for a long time, not because they were dangerous, but because they required slowing down. Quiet enforces the slowdown. You feel yourself wanting to narrate the experience, to package it into something manageable. But presence resists that too. It's not a story yet. It's just sensation. Awareness without commentary. A raw noticing of what's been sitting under the surface, patiently waiting for conditions where it could exist without interruption. Avoidance thrives on interruption. When there's nothing left to interrupt you, you notice how often you interrupt yourself. How quickly you dismiss a feeling before it finishes forming. How instinctively you minimize reactions so they don't ask anything of you. Quiet doesn't let you minimize without noticing that you're doing it. This is where presence starts to feel heavier, not because the content is overwhelming, but because it's undiluted. There's no soundtrack, no secondary screen, no external rhythm to sync to. Your internal pace becomes the only tempo in the room, and it's slower than you're used to. You might feel the urge to fix something, even though nothing is technically broken. Presence has a way of making unresolved things feel immediate, even if they've been around for years. Avoidance stretches time. Presence collapses it. You see how certain thoughts keep reappearing not because they're important, but because they haven't been fully witnessed, not solved, not acted on, just noticed long enough to be acknowledged as real. Quiet gives them that space. There's a subtle shift when this happens. A moment when resistance softens, not out of surrender, but out of fatigue. You stop trying to steer away. You let the feeling exist without labeling it productive or unproductive, useful or unnecessary. Presence isn't active. It's receptive. And that's why it can feel exposing. You're not doing anything, yet something is happening. You're not making progress, yet something is being revealed. Avoidance always comes with the illusion of control. Presence removes that illusion gently, by making control irrelevant. In the quiet, you're not asked to change. You're asked to stay. Stay with the discomfort without escalating it. Stay with the recognition without turning it into judgment. Stay with the awareness without demanding a conclusion. This is where avoidance usually pulls the plug. But when it can't, presence fills the space by default. You realize that quiet isn't forcing anything on you. It's just removing the layers that usually stand between you and yourself. The rest happens naturally. Thoughts slow, sensations clarify, feelings become specific instead of vague. Specificity is harder to dodge. Presence begins to feel less like an event and more like a condition, something that was always possible, but rarely allowed. Quiet didn't create it. Quiet simply stopped preventing it. And as you sit there, aware of your own awareness, you sense how thin the line is between avoiding a feeling and being present with it.